Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik, Voss, and this is a breakdown of James Cameron's Avatar from 2009. With Avatar Fire and Ash coming December 19th, 2025, we're doing an Avatar rewatch of the first two movies to catch you up on these biggest movies of all time for all the details you missed and the incredible technology that went into making them. Awa, the unobtainium, and the whale brain goo that makes you immortal, and we're gonna cover it all. Avatar was a groundbreaking work of filmmaking utilizing newly developed performance capture and 3D camera technology released on December 18th, 2009. Avatar ushered in a 3D movie craze in theaters and even led to many folks putting 3D televisions in their home. Looking at you, Hector Navarro. And while this film is sometimes dismissed as just Dances with Wolves with Blue Aliens or a retelling of Fern Gully in space, there is so much depth and craftsmanship put into this franchise that I think it deserves a little more respect on its name. To date, the first Avatar has grossed over $2.92 billion with a B at the box office. And with one successful sequel down, a third installment is coming out this month with two more planned sequels, possibly even a sixth or seventh film at some point. So let's go back to Pandora. We open on the camera flying over the treetops of Pandora as our narrator Jake Sully introduces himself.
When I was lying there in the VA hospital with a big hole blown through the middle of my life, I started having these dreams of flying. I was free. Sooner or later, though, you always have to wake up.
Jake will narrate many portions of the film via video diaries that he keeps as part of his experience on Pandora. Jake was a corporal in the Marine Corps until a spinal injury during an operation in Venezuela left him paralyzed from the waist down. In scenes where we see Jake's legs, they use prosthetic legs molded from a paraplegic man and then digitally removed actor Sam Worthington's real legs. Jake opens his eyes as he wakes from cryosleep on a spaceship headed for Pandora. This shot will be mirrored at the end of the film when he wakes as a true Na'vi. He's been asleep for nearly 6 years. He's on this mission to replace his twin brother who died unexpectedly after being stabbed during a robbery. His brother Tommy was a scientist who had signed on to be part of the Avatar program where humans pilot Na'vi bodies in order to interact with the native life forms of Pandora. Because these avatars are created with their human pilot's DNA, Jake made an ideal last-minute replacement after his brother's death. We'll soon learn from Jake's video diary that it's currently the year 2154. The theatrical version of Avatar never showed us what Earth is like in this universe, except for the moment of Jake's brother Tommy being cremated in a facility. But in the extended version of Avatar that was released later, we actually begin this movie on Earth in the year 2153. We see the Blade Runner-esque overcrowded streets crammed with techno neon billboards, no nature to be seen anywhere. Many folks even wear masks, probably because of the terrible climate. James Cameron making this movie in the late aughts foresaw COVID. We see Jake's small cramped apartment where the news crawl tells us that the Bengal tiger went extinct over a century ago. Jake also gets thrown out of a bar after getting into a fight after he sees a guy hit a woman. As he lays in a puddle in the alley, the neon blue and purple lights from advertisements reflect in the water, the way of water, resembling the colors of Pandora in the Tree of Souls. It's almost like Awa was calling to Jake Sully across the stars. Back in space, the ship Jake is traveling on is emblazoned with the RDA logo, something we'll see all over Pandora. RDA stands for Resources Development Administration, a corporation whose sole purpose is to extract resources from Pandora, a typical theme in science fiction where private enterprise has grown to surpass the power of most governments, similar to Weyland-Yutani in the Alien franchise, something James Cameron is very familiar with, having directed 1986's Aliens. Pandora comes into view, but it's not the big planet in the background. That's the gas giant of Polyphemus. Pandora is actually one of the 14 extrasolar moons of Polyphemus. Pandora is very Earth-like, but only about 3/4 of the size of our planet. The lower mass means the gravity is about 20% lower than on Earth. This explains how the trees and plants are able to grow much larger. The atmosphere is also toxic to humans, a detail that will get compromised in the third film. But here they say,
you lose that mass, you're unconscious in 20 seconds, you're dead in 4 minutes.
In Avatar lore, astronomers discovered Pandora in the Alpha Centauri system, roughly 4.423 light years or 23 trillion miles from Earth. In the year 2119, the RDA began mass colonization and terraforming of Pandora. By 2154, a lot of infrastructure exists, as we can see when landing at Hell's Gate, the first and biggest base established by the RDA. The RDA is packing a lot of artillery, dual rotor Scorpion attack craft zip all over the place, and there are many mechanized amplified mobility platforms or AMP suits marching around the base. The AMP suits resemble a souped up version of the loader from James Cameron's Aliens film. We're introduced to the film's main antagonist, Colonel Miles Quaritch, played incredibly by Stephen Lang. Stephen originally met James Cameron when he auditioned for Aliens back in the 80s.
Out there beyond that fence, every living thing that crawls, flies, or squats in the mud wants to kill you and eat your eyes for jujubes.
Quaritch's distinct scars on his head come from a viper wolf who attacked him on his first day on Pandora. Jake will encounter the animals on his first night in the jungle. Jake meets Norm, a fellow scientist in the Avatar program played by Joel David Moore, and we finally see their Na'vi avatars. They are created by the RDA with a mix of each driver's own DNA and Na'vi DNA, which is why the avatars resemble their human counterparts. The production team made a life cast of each actor that could be scanned into the computer so that each Na'vi character really did resemble the actor. The Avatar Na'vi have 5 fingers on each hand as well as 5 toes on each foot, as opposed to the Na'vi's 4 fingers and 4 toes. The avatars also have eyebrows, whereas the Na'vi do not. And the Na'vi's eyes are rounder and more lemur-like, as opposed to the avatar's more human eyes. Also, the braid, or neural queue, starts at the base of the avatar's skull, while the Na'vi's queue is at the top of their heads. The muscle structure of the avatars is a little more human-like, as opposed to the leaner Na'vi. James Cameron wanted the Na'vi to look alien, but also attractive to help sell the love story. But before we jump into our avatars, let's take a step back and discuss how this movie even came about. Cameron had been musing on the idea of Avatar for years, inspired by his time spent as a kid in the woods near his home in Chippewa, Ontario in Canada. It was during the production of his film Titanic in 1995 that he really started thinking about making Avatar. He shared a scriptment or treatment of the film's story with his producing partner John Landau, who is no longer with us sadly. James Cameron's plan was to make Avatar his next film after Titanic, but it was deemed technologically impossible and too costly to make Avatar at the time. Cameron would go on to make several deep sea exploration documentaries after Titanic, but finally in 2005 he started working on pre-production for Avatar. Initially he brought together a team to begin developing the technology needed to make the film, as well as create the concept art for the planet of Pandora and all of its flora and fauna. Weta Digital was brought on to help with the film digital effects coming off of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy and his King Kong film. Cameron and his team developed new motion capture technology to really capture the performance of their actors. The team used a visual camera that acted as a monitor to help capture specific shots during the performance capture. Hundreds of cameras tracked the actors' movement from multiple angles in a performance volume and rendered their characters and the environment in real time. Cameron could then use his virtual camera to help the rendered scene from any angle. Cameron cast Zoe Saldana for the role of Neytiri early on, but when it came to the role of Jake Sully, they looked at many options. James Cameron revealed in an interview this year that 3 actors screen tested for Fox for the role of Jake Sully, and Channing Tatum was close to landing the part. After 2 years of perfecting the technology, they finally got the green light from Fox to start filming in January 2007. They started with the motion capture sequences. James Cameron wanted to ensure what the actors filmed in the studio is what would appear on film. They're not just voicing a character with animators making the movements of the Na'vi. The actor's performance is what appears on screen. A character mounted on the actor's head would record their facial movements to capture the nuances of their performance, especially the emotion in their eyes. In November 2007, they switched to production on the live elements of the film. This live action production lasted until March of 2008. Cameron created a new type of 3D camera in order to shoot this movie in 3D. Cameron first had experience working with 3D camera technology when he shot the film elements for the Terminator 2 3D attraction at Universal Studios. Wanting to improve this technology, James Cameron developed the Fusion camera system, which uses 2 cameras to shoot in stereoscopic 3D in order to improve the 3D experience for audiences. The success of Avatar would set off a 3D movie craze in Hollywood, but few other imitators would actually do the work that James Cameron did to make 3D look that good. So what you hated about seeing 3D in every movie that came out from like 2010 through 2012 was not Avatar's fault. It was all the other studios' films that tried to capitalize on this by just doing it after the fact. Now, once live action production was completed, James Cameron spent an entire year using the virtual camera alone in the volume to shoot the motion capture sequences recorded months earlier. These shots were then sent to Weta to render out the final scene with the high-resolution elements. The first 13 shots took a year to fully finish, but as the process continued, the work got faster and more efficient. Towards the end of post-production, they were churning out 200 shots a week. Weta Digital handled the bulk of the rendering, but ILM, Framestore, Hydraulics, and Hybrid were brought in to finish visual effects shots. James Horner was brought in to compose the score for the film. He sampled instruments from many different cultures and used digital effects to make them sound less human. With a reported budget of $237 million and nearly 5 years of production, and everyone in Hollywood rooting against this film, James Cameron ran a very effective marketing campaign in 2009 with a 30-minute preview at CinemaCon that shut up everybody. So Fox planned a special Avatar Day that got everyone super pumped for this movie, and it went on to make $2.92 billion at the box office and remains a top 5 earning film of all time. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. When I was younger, it felt like individual experiences were overwhelming. I'd go through a breakup, or I'd go to a new school, or something like that. Something that was difficult, but was finite. But just being an adult is overwhelming. Anxiety around family, career, and finances feels constant. And yeah, there's things I could be doing to manage stress around any one issue, but knowing what to do first or where to start can sometimes feel like another problem to solve on top of everything else. A therapist reminded me once that the best place to start is wherever you can. Accomplishment is contagious, and knocking out 1 or 2 simple tasks can give you the energy, clarity, and confidence you need to tackle bigger things. I'm grateful to my therapist for giving me that insight and it's part of why we are proud to have BetterHelp as a sponsor of today's video. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easy. Just head to betterhelp.com/newrockstars, fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a licensed therapist in as little as a couple days. If for whatever reason you and your therapist don't click, you can switch therapists at any time for no extra cost. BetterHelp accepts both HSA and FSA cards, making it even easier to prioritize your mental health. In 2024 alone, over 137,000 people used their HSA or FSA benefits for therapy through BetterHelp, so be sure to use yours before they expire. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Jake makes his first of many video diary entries. You can see that this is log entry 01. The date is May 19th, 2154. Sigourney Weaver plays Dr. Grace Augustine. She, of course, worked with James Cameron previously on Aliens. Before Weaver was cast, the character's name was Grace Shipley, but James Cameron decided to change it to Grace Augustine to avoid the Shipley-Ripley connection. Grace wears a necklace that was likely made by some of her former Na'vi students. For some reason, Grace is also able to smoke cigarettes in these oxygen-rich environments. Grace has been working on Pandora in the Avatar program for years. She used to run a school that taught young Na'vi the English language and other human culture. Neytiri and her younger sister attended that school, but the program ended when some of the children were killed by RDA soldiers. One of those killed was Neytiri's sister. Norm tries to show off his command of the Na'vi language, which is translated on screen with subtitles in the infamous papyrus font. You know, Ryan Gosling's favorite. Papyrus! For the film, the Na'vi language was developed by Dr. Paul Frommer. Lines for the Na'vi were originally written in English in the script and then translated into Na'vi. Grace hates that she has to work with the military-minded Jake rather than his science-minded brother. Jake is literally wearing the shirt with the eagle, globe, and anchor, the symbol of the Marines. But it is the fact that Jake used to be a Marine that makes him such an active hero and the perfect hero for this story, because it's why Quaritch thinks he can move him, and it's why Jake is such a combatant when he mobilizes the Na'vi. RDA Administrator Parker Selfridge, played by Giovanni Ribisi, doesn't really care about the Avatar program or appeasing the Na'vi. He's here on behalf of the RDA to mine the planet for unobtainium, a rare compound that's highly valuable on Earth.
Because this little gray rock sells for 20 million a kilo. That's the only reason. It's what pays for the whole party.
Selfridge has pieces of Na'vi jewelry and arrows framed in his office, not out of respect, probably more as trophies. Jake and Norm hop into their avatars, and while Norm has done it before, this is Jake's first time. Grace shows up in her avatar wearing a Stanford shirt that's gotta be like a quadruple XL. Grace's avatar has the most human-looking nose compared to the other avatars, which are more cat-like. When Jake's avatar goes to sleep, the link disconnects and he comes back to his regular body in the pod. We meet Trudy, played by Michelle Rodriguez, who actually learned to pilot a helicopter for the film. She pilots a Samson, which is a transport version of the Scorpion with less weaponry. Quaritch convinces Jake to feed him information with the promise of getting his legs fixed. He shows off his skills in an AMP suit, setting up his final showdown with Jake at the end. The next day, we finally get our first look at the jungles of Pandora during the daytime. The flora is massive thanks to the planet's low gravity. We see some prolemurs swinging from the trees. The animals of Pandora were all designed to be hexapodal, or have 6 appendages, except for the Na'vi. Inspiration for the color and patterns of the animals came from tropical fish and poison dart frogs. In a deleted scene in the extended version, we get a look at Grace's old school, which had a copy of The Lorax, a Dr. Seuss book that is all about protecting the environment against capitalism and human greed, and the Lorax who speaks for the trees. Jake also discovers bullet holes from the fateful day when Neytiri's sister and the others were killed. Grace and Norm examine some tree roots.
So, that is signal transduction from this root to the root of the tree next to it.
Grace will explain what this means at the end of the film.
There's some kind of electrochemical communication between the roots of the trees. It's more connections than the human brain. It's a global network. They can upload and download data.
The Omaticaya clan referred to this network as Awa. While enamored by some Helicradian plants, Jake startles a hammerhead Titanothere. He shows his bravery and stands his ground when charged, but then the apex predator of the Pandoran jungle appears, the Thanator. Several animals in Avatar use recycled dinosaur sound effects from Jurassic Park. The Thanator here has a slightly tweaked version of the Tyrannosaurus Rex roar. The dire horses we see later use some recycled velociraptor noises. Jake escapes the Thanator by diving into a river. The water effects here look really good, but James Cameron will really perfect the water technology for the sequel, The Way of Water. We see that Neytiri has been watching Jake. As she draws her bow, a wood sprite lands on her arrowhead. These are the seeds from the Tree of Souls, a very sacred tree to the Omaticaya clan. Neytiri takes this as a sign from Awa to not kill Jake. You'll also notice that because of their physiology, the Na'vi draw their bow with their left hand turned backwards. This is an idea from James Cameron to make the Na'vi's use of the bow unique. The actors actually trained to hold the bows this this way. Also, because Zoe Saldana is left-handed, James Cameron made all the Na'vi use their bows left-handed. Jake has to spend the night alone in the jungle. Initially, he makes a torch, but when attacked by a group of viper wolves, Neytiri intervenes. She puts out the torch to show Jake that he does not need it. And here, James Cameron finally makes the big reveal: the jungle of Pandora at night, lit by bioluminescence. And this slow dive into the jungle was very intentional. Rather than jump right into this environment at the beginning of the movie, he starts with the live action at Hell's Gate and slowly moves into this fully computer-generated alien environment so that when you finally see it, you're more likely to believe it. It's beautiful, and in full 3D in the theater, it was even more stunning. James Cameron's theory behind the bioluminescence was that because the large trees create such a canopy and not much daylight would reach the jungle floor, the plants developed bioluminescence to compensate. Jake wants to go back with her to her camp, but she tells him that he cannot since he's one of the sky people, the term the Na'vi use for the humans. He's suddenly covered by wood sprites, and Neytiri takes it as a sign from Eywa to bring him back to camp.
Come.
Before they make it, they're stopped by Sute, played by Laz Alonso, aka Mother's Milk from The Boys. Sute rides a dire horse. They bring Jake into the home tree of the Omitakaya clan to meet the leader, Etukan, played by Wes Studi, and the spiritual leader of Moat, played by CCH Pounder.
Yeah, the actress from The Shield. Love that show.
God damn it, Dutch! What other errands do you have us running for the DA?
These are Neytiri's parents. They both refer to Jake as an alien because, yeah, the humans are the aliens on this planet. Behind them, you can see the skull of a Toruk, or the Last Shadow. The look of the Na'vi here is very impressive, and each one is incredibly unique. The cultural history of the Na'vi was developed with the help of Weta Workshop. The Neolithic culture of the Na'vi was based on different indigenous Pacific cultures. The Na'vi don't use metal because of the strong magnetic fields of Pandora, so they use materials like bone, leather, stone, and crystals. All of the costumes in the film worn by the Na'vi were also created practically by Weta to understand how they would move and work in a digital environment. Jake tells Moat that he's a member of the Jarhead clan, which is obviously military slang for Marines. Moat decides that Jake will be allowed to learn the Na'vi ways with Neytiri as his teacher. Jake trains with Neytiri. He rides a dire horse. He learns that when they connect their hair to another being, it's called a Thehelu, where they bond with the creature and feel what they feel. Grace is on to Jake feeding Quaritch information, so she moves the team to the Hallelujah Mountains.
The legendary floating mountains of Pandora? Heard of them?
These were inspired by the limestone mountains of the Guilin region of China. The mountains float on Pandora because of the strong magnetic fields. During a flight on his Banshee, Jake encounters a Toruk, which hunts from above. Neytiri tells him about the legend of the Toruk Makto.
He brought the clans together in a time of great sorrow.
Jake's 87th video diary confirms it's now August 13th, 2154, nearly 3 months since he first came to Pandora. Jake is fully welcomed into the clan in a ceremony. After that, Jake and Neytiri hang out under a tree of voices. When they connect to them, they can hear the voices of ancestors. This is basically the network of Eywa that Grace will later be uploaded to. Jake and Neytiri then bond with each other underneath a tree of voices. And yes, we can feel the love tonight. But the next morning, the RDA bulldozes the trees. Jake hops back into his avatar just in time to start attacking the bulldozers, but now the jig is up, and now Quaritch knows that Jake has switched sides. Sute confronts Jake about mating with Neytiri. The clan is now super pissed, and as Jake tries to explain himself, Quaritch pulls them out of their link pods.
Parker, there is time to salvage the situation. Parker,
Shut your pie hole.
Or what, Ranger Rick? You gonna shoot me?
I can do that.
He will, in fact, shoot her. Selfridge decides to send the gunships to force the Na'vi to leave the home tree. There's a voice cameo here by James Cameron as the gunships move in.
Roger that. Stay on heading 030.
The home tree is destroyed, and Etukan is mortally wounded. He gives his daughter his bow, which she will use in the final battle. Jake and the science gang are placed in custody. Trudy busts them out later that night, but during their escape, Quaritch chases him down without a mask and manages to shoot Grace while holding his breath. As we'll see throughout the franchise, Quaritch loves to show off by holding his breath. The gang escapes to a spot near the Tree of Souls, knowing that the magnetic vortex there will mask them from the scanners. Jake hops back into his avatar and shows up at the Tree of Souls as Toruk Makto, the mythical hero, after capturing a Last Shadow. He also asks for their help with Grace, hoping they can save her. They connect Grace and her avatar to the Tree of Souls. Grace has to pass through the Eye of Eywa to return in order for it to work. We see her enter the light tunnel, but then it fades to white. Her consciousness is absorbed by Eywa, but not passed on to her avatar. It's interesting to consider that every time they enter their avatars, they did pass through the Eye of Eywa. This technologically advanced process was always connected to the spirituality of Pandora. In a way, Eywa was allowing this avatar program, perhaps with the hope that it could help us humans learn how to reconnect with the natural world, and perhaps is the best way to protect the planet of Pandora and bring about peace between these two intelligent species. So Grace is gone, for now, but Jake delivers a rousing speech to the Na'vi, calling on them to unite with other clans in their battle against the RDA. We'll see some of the the other clans in this film, the Horse clans of the plains and the Ikran people of the Eastern Sea, but they still physically resemble the Ometkaya Na'vi in many ways. It's not until the sequels that we start to see the Na'vi with very different physiology as James Cameron continues to build out this world. So it is now battle day. The RDA makes its way toward the Tree of Souls with a transport shuttle loaded with explosives. As the assault team moves into the Hallelujah Mountains, the Na'vi on Banshees attack from above, which is a trick that Jake learned from the Turek. Everyone wears war paint. Neytiri has a handprint on her chest, and since it has 5 fingers, we know it's from her boo, Jake. Some of this aerial battle was mapped out with motion capture on the performance volume by James Cameron using models. The RDA seems to have the advantage, but Awa has heard Jake's prayers and sends in reinforcements via Pandora's fauna. Neytiri's Banshee is shot down, which she feels thanks to her at the Halu. She's able to tame and ride the Thanator, and Jake takes down the bomber shuttle just in time to save the Tree of Souls. On the ground in his AMP suit, Quaritch takes on Neytiri and then eventually Jake. Quaritch tries to pull Jake from his link pod to suffocate him, but Neytiri is able to kill him with her father's bow. Neytiri rescues human Jake, getting a mask on him just in time, and for the first time, she sees the human form of the man she loves. Now, in a scene in the extended version of the film, Jake is put back into his avatar and taken to the dying Sute, who asks Jake to finish him off and be his last shadow, the name of the Turek. Jake obliges, offering a blessing in Na'vi. Most of the humans in the RDA are sent back to Earth, with the select few like Norm being allowed to stay behind. Selfridge warns as he leaves, "You know this isn't over. You damn right. We got at least 4 more movies." So then on August 24th, 2154, Jake makes his 98th and final video diary. In a ceremony that evening, Jake and his avatar are taken to the Tree of Souls. Jake's consciousness is permanently transferred into his avatar. He opens his eye as a true Na'vi, mirroring the first shot of the film. And also the first and last shot of Lost. Next week, we'll be breaking down 2022's Avatar: The Way of Water. We'll also try to do just a general recap video of everything you need to know going into Fire and Ash. Comment down below with your thoughts on this film, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Marisa Miranda, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Big thanks to Brandon Barrick for writing this breakdown, to studio tech Brian Kim, New Rockstars editors Joshua Stephen Hurd and Abby Freel, and supporting editors Ed Vilderman, Chris Greski, Kelly Joule, and John Costa for all their work on this video. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.